I'm here with Hadar Lahav, who is an expert in online sexual abuse. She was a former sexual abuse investigator with the police, and now she's a doctoral student at Bar-Ilan University, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken.
I'm not mistaken. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so first of all, I guess let's introduce our guests to who you are a little bit. How you got to where you are in your studies and kind of that journey and how that unfolded.
Okay, so I was doing psychology first degree, and when I finished, I went to sociology for my second degree. And then while finishing it, while writing my thesis, I was volunteering in a place where people can call if they feel like they got hurt sexually.
Okay. So like a hotline, basically.
Yeah, like a hotline. And I was always interested occupied with sexual offenses on both sides, both the victims and the offenders. And I heard that there was a special unit that were constructing in the police, Israeli police. So I sent my resume, and they offered me the job of investigator.
Which, because there's obviously a major difference between somebody who answers the phone and an investigator. How did that happen?
So they probably saw something that made them think I would be better as an investigator, and it really interested me. It sounded really important and made me think that it's an opportunity for me to really help people, to really prevent bad things to happen. And when I heard it's a special unit that specializes in protecting children from online risks at all, and specifically my job was from sexual offenses.
Was there something that, what is it about sexual offenses particularly that maybe drew your interest, if anything? Was there any sort of history or a friend or something like that?
It's a good question. I'm always being asked this question, and I can understand why. I think
I just have so many friends who went into psychology because they're really messed up.
Yeah.
It's just not, which I think, it's maybe that's a prerequisite for going into certain fields.
I think I'm messed up in my own way.
Sure.
Everyone has its scratch.
Exactly.
But I never had a personal bad experience or a disaster experience. Yeah, thank God. Other than the usual harassment every woman, I'm pretty sure most men are also going through. But as a woman, I think I was raised to be more careful, to be more protective of myself. And if I'm comparing it to my brother, I was warned a lot more than my brother did before we headed out wherever. And I think
who did more of the warning? Was that your father or your mother?
I think both of them.
Really?
In every different occasion, both of them, and also the society. I mean, we used to talk about in school. We used to talk about the risks for women, for girls, and there was a time where this rapist was out free. His name was Ben Isela. He's now arrested. I think for the rest of his life he's in jail. And it was so scary. I remember that I needed to go somewhere. I was a little kid, and my parents told my brother to walk with me so that he will protect me. And he was a little kid himself. But so I grew up with this notion that girls are more vulnerable. Girls needs to protect themselves more than men or boys. So that is always something I'm interested in, and I wanted to do something. Ever since I remember myself, I wanted to do something that can affect people's life, that can affect a society or perceptions of the society about something, about some issue that we're dealing with as a society. And then I found this, the 105 unit, and I got enlisted, and it was not an easy first year. The training is not easy. It's long, and I had a 1-year-old son waiting for me at home. It was 8 months, and plus the beginning of the work. It was very difficult, but it's a very interesting job. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot and met amazing people, amazing friends, and that's it.
So, all right, so then you got into this job. What made you leave?
Yeah. So I've always known I never wanted to be a police officer. I never found interest in the police work.
Did you find yourself kind of in the police force longer than you expected as well then? Were you thinking about leaving for a while?
Well, no, actually it was pretty much the time I wanted it to be, because I wanted to get to know this area of online offending, and I wanted to learn about it, knowing that someday when the time is right. I remember sitting in the police officer training school at the beginning, and deciding that when the time is right, one day I will leave and use all of my training, everything I learned to.
So that was your plan really from the beginning, to just get your education on the streets and then take it somewhere else.
To learn from the field.
All right, so you left, and then so you were saying about your decision to leave, like how that kind of.
So during the time I was an investigator, I investigated criminals, offenders. I collected testimonies from their victims, and I learned about this phenomenon a great deal. I've learned that in Israel, at the very least in Israel, there's not much awareness of this subject, and both teens and their parents and the educational teams are not fully aware of the dangers and how profound it can be, of how devastating an online sex offense can be. And from the victims, I learned that it's truly devastating.
It's a trauma.
It's trauma and it's really the same as being hurt in the physical sphere.
Now I can hear people in my head listening to like even a victim saying, how can you compare online harassment or to an actual assault?
So I think, there's so many layers to this question.
Right.
And I think the basic is, if you live outside the physical danger that you can experience while getting hurt outside in the physical sphere, there is, and the most harsh offense is the mentally one, right? So the most traumatic offense is
trauma.
The trauma, the mentally trauma. And while
in terms of getting over it,
in terms of forgiving myself, to understanding that I'm not to blame, the only one who you can blame is the offender,
right? Justifiably.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the most difficulties in getting hurt online, because it's not only that nobody else believed me, because this is something we can see also in every form of sexual offense, but I don't believe in myself. Let me give you an example. It will be easier. If a little boy, not a little, 16 years old boy, sitting in his room, feeling protective, feeling like he's in his home, he's safe, nothing can harm him, and suddenly this 16-year-old girl sent him a message, and she looks good, and they're starting a conversation. Very fast they're finding there are many hobbies that they like, both of them likes, and they're starting some sort of a relationship online. She lives far away from him, so they can never get together, but they're talking, and maybe starting to get more intimate, like sending pictures to one another, maybe some videos. And so he tells his friends about it, and he's very happy about it because he starts to develop feelings for her.
Right.
So, and then suddenly, somehow, he realizes that she's not who he thinks she is. She's actually a 40-year-old man who was lying and impersonating for
Right.
someone else, to be someone else. What are the odds he will go back to his friends and tell them that? He found out that whoever he's been texting with, whoever he's been...
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And he's remaining with this traumatic, very traumatic experience alone, all by himself, because he knows that his friends are gonna make fun of him, and he cannot understand he fell for it. So I think this is pretty much the
And that's
main
like for
issue.
a boy.
That's like for a boy,
Right.
exactly. So for girls, it's pretty much the same. I mean, victim blaming is something that is well known, and of course self-blaming. Why did I do it? If I knew it wasn't making me feel good, why did I went along with it? So I think this is one of the biggest traumas they have in the online sphere. And if you even take it one step further to the virtual world, to the VR technology, that format of technology makes you feel like you're really there. You're really in this atmosphere.
That's the point, yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. And they're doing it now pretty good. I'm not talking about what's in the future, which is going to be probably
Yeah, who knows?
like identical. So it feels it feels identical to a real experience, and it is real. I'm hearing people asking me, yes, but this is not a real rape. It
Right.
is, and I cannot stress this enough. It's difficult, and it is very much.
It is hard, I think, to wrap our heads around that.
Yeah, it
that
is.
it's
I
like,
can
well,
understand.
why don't you just take off the headset?
Yeah, of course.
You know?
So one lady, she talked about. She was from Europe. She interviewed for this article about the abuse she went through in a virtual world,
Yeah.
and she said she was asked why didn't you just shut it down? Why didn't you just? There's a button you can send, like an SOS button. Why didn't you just press the button? And she said she froze. And we can see the same reaction by victims in the physical sphere. The freezing, the not understanding what is happening, and I can't control it. It's the feeling that nothing I can do will matter. I cannot save myself now.
Sure.
So
I mean, okay, so what do we do? Because we're not going to stop this technology.
No,
and we're not
and we
going to
don't
stop
wanna.
people being terrible, unfortunately. Which we do want to, but
Yeah.
that's,
that we do want to do.
that's an uphill battle, that one.
Yeah, I think ever since the world was always good and bad.
Yeah.
Both, like there's some kind of a swing going by.
Right.
But yeah, we're not going to stop the technology, and nor do we want to stop the technology. I think the technology is good. I think we need to embrace it, in
Right.
my opinion. I know some people do not agree with this, but I really believe that it's good, and it can bring a lot of good. So the only way we can stop it, or we can prevent it from getting bigger and bigger, is just to be aware of the risks and the hazard in this sphere, to understand, to give its place, to understand that victims are suffering, and their suffering is real, it's genuinely and real. And then from that point on, we need to educate our next generations. And nowadays, our generations, I think it's the millennium generation.
Sure.
maybe.
Whichever one that is, yeah, who knows?
So we are the one who controls the settings now. The teachers, we are in politics, we are in the government. We need to understand this is happening, this is our new reality. And once we'll get there, we need to make sure that the next generation are also understanding the risks. They can identify when someone is trying to talk to them, to get something from them. We need to make them identify when someone is impersonating. We just need to, like, and any parents won't be sending their kids alone to stray alone at night, like in a foreign neighborhood, right? So we're just giving them phones. That means they're straying alone at night in front of like the whole world. Everything is exposed.
Right.
So we need to set ground rules. We need to make sure that they understand.
So I know that you have like a website, hadarlahav.com. And you do lectures on this. You're studying this, obviously.
Yes.
As I mentioned, you're doing your doctorate on this kind of phenomenon. How do you prepare parents for this? I mean, this is stuff that even millennial parents, most of whom grew up with the internet or on the internet, I mean, it changes so fast.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to be necessarily progressing at the same level as technology is, because we can't. We literally can't, and we just need to know it exists and to speak to our children at this.
I mean, I know.
Issues.
So how do you do that? You are a mother yourself. Like, how do you plan to do that in such a way where? Because, like, I can tell you now that if my parents sat me down and said, hey, let's talk about online sexual abuse safety, I'd probably say, yeah, okay, no.
No, thank you. Thank you, though.
Right, thanks for your concern, but no thanks.
Yeah.
You know? So what do you do? So
I think it's embarrassing both for the parents and the children. But nowadays, when sexuality becomes more and more on the table, I mean, we're discussing sexuality in more ways, more often than we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just our responsibility as parents. We have to do it. Embarrassing as it is, we have to do it. And the kids will be embarrassed too. But we need to let them know it's like, the same way we were teaching them how to cross the roads or how to not answer the door when they don't know who it is. The same way, even if it's embarrassing for us, it's not about us. It's about them. It's about them learning how to protect themselves online, which is the environment. There are so many hours of the day in it. It's like their main interactions with the people.
So, we just had this conversation on Insider, which is an ILTV show for everybody who's listening. ILTV's Insider airs tonight. Come check it out. We spoke today about a lot of this, about sexual assault, about online pornography and its role in society. And our other guest, she's very much against porn as an industry. I mean, we heard views that there is no real legitimate version of it, that it's kind of us kidding ourselves. Would you agree with that?
After thinking about it a lot, because it is something that I don't think we need to take everything as simple as it is. But after running it through my head again and again and again, I totally agree. Because I think even if there is a community in Israel, and I know that it exists in other countries in the world, a community that supports prostitution as a career, as not something offensive, not violence, a career of their choosing.
Sure.
So even if there are women, I'm talking about women, although it also exists in men. So even if there are women who really believe it's healthy for them, and it is healthy for them, okay, let's just go with it and say it is healthy.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Give them the benefit of the doubt. They're saying that by not giving the space, we're dehumanizing them. So I won't dehumanizing them, and I'm
taking away their agency to make their own decisions or mistakes, for that matter.
Okay, so I'll go with them. This is a minority of a huge population that is getting re-victimized again and again and again. Most women who fell into prostitution, who got to prostitution are there because they were offended in the past, growing as children, as abused children, or having to do something because they have no money and no way out. So they got there because they had no other opportunity, they had no other ways of operation. Most of them are not doing it because they choose it, and it's very it's messing up their life, and it's devastating for them. So I think as a society, even if there is a minority who choose to do it, as a society we need to protect the weak, and we need to be there for the most of the population of certain phenomenon.
Do you think that if the society got behind it in a, like, is there any version of prostitution or sex work that can be done well? Like, is there any version where, you know, if we look to European countries, the red light districts and things like that, where it's unionized and regulated, is that a good way to do it, or is that also just a smokescreen for something way worse?
So that's a good question, because when legalizing something, when you decided that one behavior is illegal in a country, or you kind of connecting it with other behaviors that are
like criminal,
illegal,
right?
For example, drugs or abuse. And so I think I you know what, I can't give you a right answer, because first of all, it won't serve, like, it depends on so many factors that I can't be sure if it's a real very difficult question to answer. I need to check it out, and
I mean, just like,
I need to know the statistics.
Right. Yeah, because that's it. I think back. I saw, for example, a episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. I'm not sure if you watch it, but he talks about sex work and prostitution in the United States in particular, but not only. And they talked about how the apparently preferred model of after speaking with sex workers is that they prefer to just have decriminalization. Really? Which, and I didn't do this research myself, so I can't speak to this at all. But yeah, that he suggested that they pretty much just want the government's hands out of it, because when there's an illegal facet to it, be it on them or on their clients, it forces certain unsafe behaviors. So, for example, when it was illegal to have certain contraceptives and things, because that would make you seem like you might have been a prostitute. Well, then the prostitutes who didn't go anywhere just stopped using condoms because they didn't want to get harassed by police. So it's unsafe behavior in response to this legal edict. Similarly, they brought up an example about how when they made it illegal to do it in certain, like in an enclosed space, like in a brothel, it drove them into the streets. Which was equally, arguably worse for the sex workers in terms of their safety. I guess I just struggle to find a solution.
Yeah, because if you legalize it, you really need to be on top of things and knowing exactly, like, create places where it's legal, and you really need to make sure that nobody else takes advantage of them, like pimps.
Like, you go in there and check their papers or something. Like, are you?
It sounds like funny, but I think it's the only way. If you do. So like a heavy
regulation.
If you do, if you go with it, if you do have the regulations, then you need to be sure that the whole point is to protect women.
Right.
And if you allow it to happen out of their choosing, you need to make sure that the most of the population is not there anymore.
Right.
Because most of them are getting offended.
So if I speak now more about Israel specifically, how bad is the situation when it comes to minors who are forced into sexual slave labor or prostitution, human trafficking? Like, how bad is the situation in Israel?
Okay, so this is not really my area.
Sure.
From what I heard, I know that the human trafficking really decreased in the past, I think, 15 years or so.
Okay.
Ever since
That's good.
it's like a governmental decision to stop the human trafficking. And as far as I know, there is no human trafficking in Israel, as far as I know. Hope I'm not
Like no
mistaken.
new human trafficking.
Yeah, nothing
Right.
that we know of. I'm not talking about prostitution.
Sure.
That exists.
It definitely exists.
Yeah. And I think if I'm returning back, if it's okay, to the online environment,
Please.
I think everything transferred there. I mean, even if we don't see it as much as we used to on the streets, it's only because it transferred to the online environment. And it's very difficult, especially in minors. For example, I can tell you that the gay community minors suffered plenty.
Gay minors?
Yeah, plenty from online, and it even they even sometimes get together and meet knowingly. I mean, the whole idea behind it for them is like, okay, I'm still not ready to tell everyone I'm gay, and I do wanna experience. So they're just go out and look for applications such as, I don't know if I can say an example, but they're.
I mean, I don't mind. But
Okay, so such as Grindr
Sure.
for a minute. It's not the purpose of this
right.
application.
Yeah, it's
but
a meetup app.
yeah, but they go
Right,
there,
of course.
and of course they, even if it's over 18, they're just writing they're over 18, and they have their certain language that by that everyone knows they're looking for. It calls support. They're labeling themselves minor, looking for support.
They said they're looking for support,
Yeah,
and
this is the
that's
language.
a code, or that's what
That's a code.
they're actually looking for support.
No, they're not mentally support. They're looking for like money support.
Oh, okay.
And they feel like, okay, if I'm looking for experience and I'm ready to meet up with men, adult men, for sex, why don't I gain money out of it? So
and
they
that's
just
a very
do
slippery
it.
slope, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
In general, I think that connecting sex with money is a very slippery
Yeah,
slope.
it's a pretty dangerous spot to be.
Yeah.
Did you see, in your time as an officer, as a police officer, did you see like a lot of men in these situations, or was it like obviously way more women?
No. Okay, so this is the surprising part. The literature, there is no statistics on it that I could find in Israel, but I can tell you that from studies overseas, the amount of boys who get offended, who get hurt online, sexual offended, is similar to the amount of girls.
I've read 40%, but I always thought that was really high.
That's really high, but it's, you see, remember the example I gave you in the first place?
Yeah.
Boys are less likely to share their story, less likely to go to the police with their story, because they are more embarrassed, because it's not like them to be so vulnerable, to be so silly, and to believe anyone.
So are they almost an easier target?
Yeah, in these ways, yes, they are.
Wow.
So they are more exposed because they feel that they don't need to protect themselves as much.
Wow.
So yeah, they're more exposed, and so I saw both girls and boys getting hurt online.
And another thing that really we talked about this earlier, but I thought maybe we could talk more on the topic is what is being done about it, because if we know, I mean, like if the police know that South Tel Aviv is full of brothels, and they know that half of those people in there are probably not there willingly, or or that their consent is dubious at best.
Yeah.
If we know how to help people in these situations, what's stopping it?
I think it's a political decision. It all comes down to politics in the end.
I mean, so you really think that, like, if we really wanted to, we could go to South Tel Aviv right now and just end it, and it could be over? Like, there's not, I don't know, maybe there wouldn't be some sort of blowback or some sort of
Okay, so as you said, you can never diminish evil in the world.
Right.
You can diminish prostitutes, and you can diminish people who wants prostitute, who wants to get to know them, to be with them. But you can, at the very least, you can decrease this phenomenon. You can protect women. You can offer them other ways to make money, to rehabilitate themselves. You can offer them help.
Why do you think that more women don't take some of these options? Do they not know about them, or do they not see them as viable?
No, I think it's an abuse cycle. It's so hard to make it stop. It's so hard to look sideways and to understand that it's in your power to make your life better. Even if they do get help, and there are lots of agencies in Israel that support and offers help
Right.
for
There's shelters and
yeah, it is possible, and some of them reach out with prostitutions and offer them like genuinely help, effective help.
right.
But it's so hard to change their life. It's what they know. It's how they know life, and in a weird way, it has become their safe place. This is what they know. This is how.
It's like Stockholm syndrome-esque
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah. Sort of. So.
Did you see a lot of situations where you helped a woman or man on the street, for that matter, and you showed them the numbers, you got them in contact with the right people, and then a week later you saw them back? You saw them in the same place?
I never really, as I said, I was only investigator at online offenses.
Right.
But from the other angle, from the research angle, from the academical view, I can tell that so they make separate terms for an occasional offender, an opportunist offender who just saw the opportunity and take advantage of it, and from career offenders. Career offenders are those who really works at offending. They're those who study their victims, choosing their victims, studying them, and learning of the exact ways. These sort of offenders, they cannot rehabilitate themselves. They cannot decide to stop offending and then they just stop.
Right.
They really need help from outside. And I know it's like a gray area or even a black area.
So like help a sexual offender
like
to rehabilitate.
who are you and why
who cares
do you
about that guy?
Yeah. But I mean, it's our interest to help them because we don't want them to go back to society and keep on hurting.
Are there those types of people that, like, do they want to be helped, quote unquote, or do they see themselves as, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I just like it.
Okay,
whatever.
I think that every offender I investigated, the first thing he told me is that, especially online offenders, it's easy for them to get detached from the offense. I mean, they know that pedophiles are bad and they're mean and they're offensive for kids, but this is not what they're doing. So like they create a gap between what they're doing, which is like on the edge of not being a good thing, and there's pedophilic.
And so they justify it.
Yeah, they justify. They give excuses, and this is why and how they keep on doing.
I mean, even if like you were to confront them with this, is there a way to confront them and to erase that cognitive dissonance or to address it in an effective way?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I used to do. I was trying to do, and some of them you can tell if someone is doing it like especially if he's doing it his whole life. We had offenders who offended for like 20 years, and we just got to them now. Nobody complained, nobody knew. Like I had some offender who used to film teenage girls in malls. Like he used to lower his cam and just like take shots of their legs and whatever. So
Classic.
and when we got to him, just didn't want to talk. He didn't even bother to excuse himself. He just didn't talk. I had experience with others that they were so hung up on their excuses and justifications that when I put a mirror in front of their faces, I could tell that they were starting to confront with themselves. For example, I had one offender who was 27 years old, and I was really empathetic towards him, because I could tell he's in a real cycle. He cannot get out, and he was not.
And he wanted to.
So at the very beginning, he didn't know what I'm talking about, and he said, I was just like, what do you want from me?
Right.
It was only sending pictures, it was only offering, I didn't meet with anyone. And then as we go along with the investigation, I made him understand how offensive he was towards little kids. They were not very little, they were teenagers, but I made him understand what he did, actually. And when I called him, I said, you're a pedophile. It's about time you understand it. I could tell his face change. So
how do you, like, what does that sound like to come to terms with something like that? And then what do you do about that? Like chemical castration? How do you address something like that?
Well, it's only a long rehabilitation. It's supposed to start at jail when they're time serving, and then when they go back to the community, they're supposed to keep on going with the therapy.
But I know that a lot of these, like, pedophiles, they more often than not will identify their pedophilia as a sexuality similar to homosexuality or heterosexuality, in such a way where they're saying, there's no changing it. That's me. That's my chemistry. That's where I am.
Yeah. Well, that is. I think that first of all, biologically, it won't change. You need to change their cognitive distortions, their interpretations of little kids as sexual. That you need to attack that point.
Wow.
And you can
how?
Well, during therapy, during group therapies, personal and group therapies. You just need to, just as the example I gave about the offender who really understood what he did, and once he did understood it, he asked me for help. He said, okay, I understand, I need help. And of course I couldn't give him help. I was an officer, I wasn't.
Right. But you can connect him in the right direction.
Well, it's something that was said in court, and I think I'm not sure. I don't know where is he now these days, but it's a good start. I mean, the judge need to know that they understand and they're feeling sorry and they regret their actions.
Did you believe it?
Yeah, him I believed.
I
believed him. Yeah,
okay.
I could tell he's not a mean person. He doesn't want to harm anybody, and he just got to a really, really low place in his mindset, and he needs to change it. I believe he can. But the other harsh thing they need to deal with after serving their time and getting back to the community to rehabilitate their life, they need to then deal with the informal punishment, which is the society. After their family and probably where they worked, or I don't know, their friends, after they knew they were accused of sexual offenses, it's really hard for us, and I can understand why. It's really hard for us to accept them back and to trust them, to make sure that it won't happen again. It's a very big issue.
Right. I mean, so what do you think about like national sex offender registries and things like that? You know, do you support that, or do you think that it's just kind of like a
It's labeling for life. It's
Yeah.
like putting them in prison for life. And most of, like, when I'm talking about it with my friends and family, most of them are like, okay, good. That is
right?
what's needed.
I feel
They
like
need-
that is the default response. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is used to be my way of thinking before meeting offenders, before understanding this is complicated.
Right.
This is not. I mean, it's not like it's easy for us to imagine to see them as bad people who do bad things and then they should be in jail for life. But it's not like that. The reality is different, and one can be like an opportunist offender. He can just be in a low place in his life and then see an opportunity, take advantage of it, and then he is an offender for life. And I think that in terms of society, we don't want them to be an offender for life, and if they're getting back to their community and they're not communicating with, they're feeling outcasted from the community, it will shove them back to the
They'll
offensive
reoffend.
ways. Yeah, they'll reoffend, exactly. So I think this is not what we want. And in addition to that, if you ask the victims, and this is a big question, and I don't think there's one straight answer for this, but if you ask the victims what will help them to get better, to go on with their lives, I'm not sure that putting them in jail for life is the answer, because they won't be in jail for life. Most likely they won't. They will get out at some point. And that point, whenever they will get out, even if it's 20 years later, which is never 20 years later in
Right.
Israel.
It's like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if it is long time later, it is turning the victim's life upside down. The only idea I know of how to resolve this problem regarding the victims is impairment. I'm not sure how it's called in English.
Is what?
In Hebrew, it's called tzedek me'acheh.
Okay, like justice. Wow.
I think impairment justice. I think.
Okay.
I'm not
All
sure
right.
this is the right
So how does
term.
that work? And then,
So they just, in general, just sit the offender and the victims,
Oh wow.
not necessarily together. It sometimes can be by their lawyers, and trying to get to a certain understanding. Trying to, first of all, the offender needs to ask for forgiveness, a real genuine one, and they need to come to in most cases there will be some kind of like they will give money to the victims according to some
Oh wow.
yes, this is help. They need money to rehabilitate themselves, to go to therapy.
Sure.
So that helps, and I think this is the most effective way of giving the victims, helping them to get back to peace.
Are there like, how willing are victims typically to meet with you?
Yeah, it's difficult. And
I imagine that if somebody assaulted me, I'd be like, screw that guy. But I don't know.
the thing is,
Obviously.
I mean, some of them feels like they need to go on with their life, and they can do it only if they'll get a closure. So in this way, it's some
That
kind
makes
of a
sense.
closure for them. And
Wow.
again, there's not right answer for anyone. I mean, each victim, each person takes it differently
Right.
and needs different
Yeah.
adjusting.
I mean, it's incredibly brave to,
Yeah, it
to
is. It is.
have that interaction. Have you ever, have you like watched these interactions
No,
ever? Have you
sadly,
ever?
I haven't. I
Wow.
really wish I would.
Are they like videotaped anywhere for training
I'm not
purposes?
sure.
Maybe we can
Not
find
sure.
one.
I'm not sure. In most of cases, they're really meeting together. I mean, they're discussing, and sometimes it can be like most cases of rape or hard sexual assault are between people that the victim knows,
Yeah.
his family, or so. In these cases, it's like inevitable that they will meet. So they might as well just sit together and discuss it in a formal and protective sort of meeting.
Wow. And then who like runs that meeting? Who like organizes that and mediates it? And thanks.
That's our time.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna what? All right, well, the light on you is all right still,
Okay,
so we'll just finish. Yeah, we'll have to finish this up in a minute.
Okay.
Sorry. So you were saying, like, yeah, who like runs that?
So it's usually by lawyers, maybe social workers, and I'm not really. It's not everywhere. It doesn't happen anytime. I mean, always with sexual victims, but when it does, I think it's really effective, and I think we need to learn more about this process and maybe to like make it more popular, to offer it for victims at the very best.
So, all right, I'm putting on the finishing touches here.
Okay.
And so I figured the last thing I'll do is I'll ask you while I do that to maybe run through, like, what would you say to young kids who are going online and just, you know, we have TikTok now, we have Instagram, we have all these different social media platforms. Video games that reward people oversharing about themselves and about their lives and posting anything and everything. What do you say to that?
So I think if I have to conclude everything to one basic tip for them, I think that whenever they stumble upon a situation or a conversation that makes them feel bad, like makes them feel bad in their tummy, something here is not right, I'm not sure I want to go along with it, but okay, maybe. So the online is a great environment to just stop for a minute before it gets really bad. If you have like the slightest concern about something not going right, stop it for just a minute, think it through maybe, and I would recommend it. Ask someone for advice, someone you trust, maybe some adults, parents maybe.
Ideally.
Ideally.
We would love that. Parents would love that. But
and just show them the conversation, ask them to their opinion, and think it through. Try to, for a minute, to get away from the situation that we know that can be very appealing, very restraining. Sometimes we feel so hooked to a conversation that we cannot see it, we cannot perceive it in an objective light. So this is the point, show it to someone else. And then continue or not, it's your decision. There are many ways to identify and to many clues of which you can be suspect that something is not right. Join my lectures and I will tell you all about it.
Join the lecture at hadarlahav.com. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add that I feel like people are forgetting that when they put something online also, it is there forever. And there's no such thing as, oh, it's safe, it's only on this one website and nobody sees it except for so-and-so. Like, no, you just put it on the internet and it's there.
And even if you send it to a close friend, she will never send it. First of all, never say never. You never know what will happen with your friendship.
Some people are jerks.
Yeah. And second of all, you can never know who knows her password and who can just look up in your phone and find your photo and do whatever he wills with it.
Also true.
So that's dangerous. And the rule is, once you put something online, you've lost any connection to it.
Yeah.
You don't have any way to bring it back.
Yeah, you can't control that. And that's something I think, like, you know, we learned recently again with platforms like OnlyFans and whatever, where people are putting these videos of themselves, images of themselves, whatever it is, and then they find out later, like, oh, it's on Tumblr, or it's you know, on the dark web, or wherever it is, wherever it ends up. And they thought they had control because of paid subscribership, but you know, all somebody needs to do is take a screenshot and then
or
it's done.
even to film it with another phone. That's easy. Nothing, no one can tell. There's a new survey who just got out for Igud Internet, which is an Israeli foundation, I think, that concluded that I think 80% of youth uploaded pictures they're regretting. So that's a lot. It's a huge.
I feel like that's not even true. It's probably closer to 90 or 100%. Is probably the truth of that number. That's huge, though. Even that, like 80%. That just shows there's not a lot of forethought. I mean, I don't know, should kids have access to these tools sometime? Like, I don't know. I don't know if kids should have such a crazy tool like TikTok.
Yeah,
like,
they shouldn't. Under the age of 13, they shouldn't, but they do. And even over the age of 13, it's still very risky.
Those are the people I want to take the phone away the most. Like, is the 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old. They're the ones who definitely need their phone taken away sometimes.
But this is part of the progressive technology world we live in. As I said, we need to embrace it. We just need to learn how to play along with it. And know how to protect ourselves.
That's something that freaks me out. It truly does. Like,
It freaks everyone out. This is why it's not that common to talk about it. There's not much awareness because most people don't like to talk about it. It's too frightening.
Where do you turn, you know, when it gets ugly? It's like you said, most people don't know. So
I suggest that if you're a minor or if you have questions about it, you can always call 105.
In Israel. If you're in Israel, you can call 105.
Yeah. Not in Israel. I think every country has her own agencies that you can call, that you can get help in. And I do recommend that if something happens to you or to your relatives, go for emotional support. It's very important because it's a really big deal. And for parents, if I might add, if there are any parents who listen, if your kid do decide to come to reach out and to come and speak with you about something that happened to them, make sure that in the minute they're talking with you, it's about them. Make it about them and not about you. As shocking, as terrifying, as upsetting it might seem, you don't want the kids to think that you're now punishing him, because the first instinct of a parent is to delete everything and to take their phone away. And that's a punish for them.
Right.
And this is one of the main reasons they won't come to you in the first place. So you need to make sure that they're not to blame, and they know it. They know that you're not blaming them. So just like take a big breath of air and just like calm yourself down. Later, deal with your consequences. Yeah. First of all, hug your child.
Yeah, be grateful that they're coming to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not very common.
It's the hardest thing ever.
For both sides, for the kids and their parents.
I feel like, you know, when I was a kid, I almost forgot, I think, how it felt to think that you knew everything and your parents don't know anything, and why would they help me and why would I go to them? And
exactly,
you know, it's so true.
Especially in the smartphones era.
Oh yeah.
When they do know everything and their parents really don't.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. So you can use it as a parent. You can use it. You can ask them, tutor me about your smartphone. Tutor me about my smartphone. Help me understand it. So you can. All you need is to make conversation with your kids about it, so that when and if something will happen, and most likely something will happen. I'm sorry to be the one who tells you that, but like a dick pic is very common. And, sadly,
that should be the title of this unfortunate segment. Dick pics are all too common.
Yeah. at some point. So when they do feel something is wrong, they will come talk to you. I cannot tell you how many times I've reached to families that about an offender I know hurt other children.
Wow.
And at these certain families, he didn't, because the kids asked their parents about it.
It's like, even if it's opportunistic, they're looking for the easy victims.
Yeah, and it's always those who are not close with their parents, or not having someone to turn to, or not having close friends. It's always those who really need the attention. Everyone needs attention, okay?
Right.
Make no mistakes. Everyone are exposed.
Yeah, everyone's vulnerable to a degree.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
something optimistic.
Yes, please.
So people are asking me about techniques or applications that can help them monitor their children and monitor their children activities and photos, whatever.
Right.
And I'm not. By the way, I'm not against it. I'm pro, but it cannot be replaced by. It cannot replace a conversation, a good communication about it. You need to tutor your children. You need to educate your children about it, and then also, like, in addition, buy this app or use it. But one time I called a mom who I knew her son was in some sort of communication with the offender, and I told her that if she agrees, I would like to come and ask her son a couple of questions. She told me that he's autistic, in the spectrum, but he's high functioning autistic. And he's always wanting to get together with girls he meets online, and she's fighting him to. He's 16. She's doing her best to prevent it from him. So I offered that maybe if I'll come to her house, I will explain it to him, and maybe it will be different for him to hear it from an officer instead of his mom. And I also offered her monitoring apps to help her. And so she said, I bought one of these apps, and I uploaded it on his phone. And then he did something, and now he's following me. He's monitoring me.
Oh, wow.
So he just turned it upside down. And
that's actually really funny.
Yeah.
Now he distracts you.
Hilarious.
And he knows when you're going to be home, when you're at work. Wow. Yeah, they know technology way better than we do. Like, way better than we'll ever know it.
Yeah. This is why we can't compete them. We need to talk to them.
This is why my kids are going to grow up in a cave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This, for certain, the best way to prevent this from them.
Yes.
Other problems?
Keep your kids in caves.
Away.
It's a lesson from Aaron.
Yeah.
Right.
Good luck. Social service will pay you a visit, but go ahead.
It's worth it. Hadar, it has been such a pleasure to speak with you. Here's your portrait.
Wow, thank you. I love it.
You're so welcome, and I had such a pleasure sitting here and speaking with you. I'm so happy that you did this.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this idea and for this painting. Wow.
Absolutely.
I'm going to hang it in my office.